here.
We will definitely not shut up and dribble.
The champ is here. I must be the greatest. The champ is here.
I'm going to continue to stand with the people.
The champ is here.
I will not lose.
I'm a bad man. I shook up the world.
Yes, welcome. You can be anywhere in the world, but you're here with we. My name is EJ, and I got my man.
Your mate.
Yes, and he is the DB of the show, and we are Black in Sports, giving a voice to the culture that won't shut up and dribble. Here interviewing the best professionals in the game and in the boardroom. We're covering it all, laughing at it all, while providing a platform to be heard. So without further ado, all of our regular listeners know what we do about this time. We have to welcome our guests. So definitely, without further ado, I want to welcome. He's always sharpening his swords behind doors, right? Because you got to have your tools and your toolbox all set. He's always building great habits, right? Because your habits are who you are, right? And then lastly, man, he's building and connecting and making meaningful relationships. And a little inside joke, he's my twin, so we may get into that a little bit later. We learned that at a conference that we were just at. But without further ado, please welcome founder, CEO of Overnght Media. Please clap it up for Kevin McReynolds. Yes, that boy good.
So you guys for having me.
Absolutely. So, Kevin, man, how we start the show is we always start the show with a shoot your shot moment, all right? So this could have been a shoot your shot moment where you either learned the lesson, took that L as in lesson, or, you got the bag, man. But there could be any time. It could have been during your younger days, college days, or in today's, market. But, yeah, please give us that shoot your shot moment.
Oh, that's a great question. Honestly, one, I want to thank you guys for having me on. I think my shoot my shot moment was just starting Overnght, right? It's that moment of kind of your friends. If I kind of take you guys back to when we started Overnght, it was because a bunch of my friends kind of came to me after the Olympics, after winning gold medals, and they basically said, hey, no one cared about our sport. And so I basically said, cool, let me get some time in this and let me figure out what we can do. And then just started Overnght. And I think that's kind of what my shoot your shot moment kind of is that there's just the ability to jump straight in and just try something new.
No, absolutely.
That's dope, man. Kevin, where your love for sports start?
Oh, that started when I was a kid, right? My dad and my parents just had me playing football at a young age, and then started with football, then went into wrestling, some AAU basketball along the way. But then obviously I just ended up 6'3", so I wasn't tall enough. So wrestling and football was the way we did things.
No, I love it. I mean, 6'3" for all of our 6'4" or 6 foot folks is pretty tough. 5'11", 6 foot, whatever you want to call it. So, I mean, shout out to you. Are you a Commanders? I know it's DC, right? Or is it Commanders? Is it Redskins? Where are you at with it all?
Yeah, I'm definitely a Commanders fan. It's a little rough, but I always tell people, if you want to test my loyalty, just know that I've been dealing with the mediocre football team for my entire life. Last time we were good, it was the year I was born. And then we had some sprinkled in goodness along the way of RG3 one year, and then Jane Daniels for 1 year, and then we thought we were back, and then we weren't.
Yeah, shout out to America's team. Just want you to, understand who you're talking with.
You guys might be the worst fans in the world. I'm just saying that. Like, I used to think it was the Eagles fans, but then it's just there's a hopelessness of every year. Just I'm used to being hopeless. You guys start off every year saying this is our year, and then it just goes bad around November.
Yeah.
So I take it you've heard of the Cowboys. All right, so no, man, that's awesome to have that. We'll see how that banter goes. Now, so yes, people, easy to say DC area, but you were born, or did you born and grew up in the Silver Springs area, or like how was kind of that feel? Because that's a sports town, not just a sports, like a sports and entertainment. A lot of people come from that area, right? From sports and media and things like that. What is home, and how was kind of sports growing up in that home area?
Yeah. So Silver Spring, I'm from Silver Spring, Maryland, but I claim DC just because I was born in DC and I went to high school in DC. I went to St. John's, which is a absolutely killer sports school, right? You're talking about the owner of Under Armour went to that school. We have Chris Wright. We have a number of I think Kiki Rice. No, not Kiki Rice, who was just #1 in the women's WNBA draft. She ended up going to St. John. So that we're a crazy sports city in school, and I think that we put a lot of really good talent. But yeah, I'm a DC guy. I love home. I love my crab cakes, and that's what it is. All the seafood in the world.
So finding seafood other than that's a stamp, right? Because you could go to a hole in wall in DC and find an amazing crab cake, and then you go to like these, 5-star, 5-diamond, and all of these, hotels all over restaurants all over that claim they have crab cakes. So I know that's a tough one for you. Now, anywhere else have you had great seafood? Because you traveled, somewhat. So where's some other places, coastal places, man? I mean, going to school in UCLA, you had to find some kind of good seafood out there, right?
Absolutely. There's some great seafood, but I'll tell you one place that has terrible seafood. Dallas. Terrible. Just a horrible place to have food except for barbecue. It's really good there and steaks. But on the West Coast, though, there's some really good spots in LA, as well as Vegas too.
Yeah, I feel you. Enough about Dallas. 4-star recruit, man. I mean, you just didn't play. You was for real playing. So, I mean, tell me about that, man. How that all come about? Who'd you tackle to get them rankings right?
I think I was just blessed. I think a lot of it was playing at the right school and really working hard and dedicating myself to the craft of and respecting the game. I think that's mostly what it was. Unfortunately, when I got to college, I had some concussions and some injuries not go the right way. And but ultimately I wouldn't be where I was if it wasn't for those concussions. So it was a blessing in disguise at the same time. I think it was that unique experience that football does as it gives, but it also humbles in a way where I think a lot of people sometimes, if you don't respect the game the way it needs to be respected, I think it has a way of humbling you, but teaching you life lessons that you really need to know.
And not only that, right? Like injuries is one we hear of, but like not a lot of athletes talk about the regime changes, right? So there was some coaching and different changes going on during your time there at UCLA. And those also put in, right? Because you went in, you were recruited maybe by this coach or your position coach left. Just a lot of different things, right? I mean, hell, even you went from being a D lineman to they were like, hey, let's see if we can get you an O lineman. Like, say all those things, provided challenges, man. What did you kind of learn or build from that?
I think there was a quote that was always said when I was in school was be comfortable being uncomfortable. And I think it was a Jim Mora quote, probably from Art of War as well. But it was this concept of you have to always be okay with any situation, and you may not agree with how it turns out, but you can always control your actions and how you handle that situation. And I think that when I got to college, obviously I was this huge recruit and kind of coming from DC, and you're a big fish in a little pond, to now coming to the big leagues. And I think having those experiences of having the right coaches and the right people around and right mentors allowed me to kind of make those shifts. But I think it was also that kind of mindset shift that I needed to make in that process that propelled me into being in being able to go through those changes of offensive line, defensive line, and doing what the team needed of me. And it's interesting when you're, especially in college in that way, like there's guys that got ran off. There's guys that just left because they weren't getting what they needed. But I understood that I was using football as a vehicle to get to where I wanted to be in life. And it's not like now, right? Like there's no loyalty in anything now in NIL era. But for me, it was really important to put myself in a situation where getting the best possible degree that I could possibly get, as well as putting the right network and people around me that I possibly could get in order to succeed in life. And I think that's what UCLA did for me. And I'm blessed that I had that opportunity.
Well, that's a great. So hearing that, I wanted to kind of get, how did you make those decisions, right? So how was it that you decided to go to UCLA? Was it the fact that the network, what foundations or, what you went to study there? And then also ultimately, how did you choose to go to Nevada, right? So you got a DC kid, right, that gets all the way to the other coast and then stays, in that kind of the West Coast territory by going to Reno, Nevada. So what helped you mold those two decisions?
Well, one, it snowed 2 feet on signing day, so that really helped the UCLA decision go pretty smoothly. And when I made the decision and I announced it, I was actually at I don't know if you guys remember this, but when Dallas held the Super Bowl way back when, there was an ice storm and it was the coldest game ever played in the state of Texas. And they had power outages, the whole thing. And I remember I was playing in the USA versus World game that day for football, and it was -5 at kickoff. And then, going through these decisions, and obviously it's freezing cold there. And then at home before I left, it was snowing. And I've had coaches kind of get stuck in my place while we were in the winter when we were going through the recruiting process. And it just, once I went on a visit there, it just felt like home, and the people were amazing and those things. And I think my decision going to Nevada was a little bit different, right? I think at UCLA, they weren't letting in athletes into the business program at the time. That changed shortly after I left, but they weren't letting in athletes into the MBA program. But then I got the opportunity to go to Nevada, and it just kind of worked out. Bill Polian, not Bill Polian, Coach Polian, his son, came in and grabbed us and grabbed me and a couple other people. And I think that was a great experience for me of, one, going somewhere where I'd never been before. And I was really kind of uncomfortable with that. But I'll never forget landing in Reno in the middle of winter is not for the faint of heart. And it's a completely different experience for anyone who doesn't understand where Reno is. It is not Vegas, not anywhere close to Vegas. And the weather, you can get 4 seasons in a day. I had several practices where it started off and it was cold, and then it started to snow, and then you get a little bit of sleet, you get a little bit of rain, and then it goes back to being sunny and 70, and then it drops off again. It's a whole thing, and you can get all the weathers in one day.
Shout out to our little big town up north.
Very, very true. So, I mean, as a 4-star recruit under All-American UCLA, I mean, there's very small percentage of people that really can see football changing their life from a career standpoint, whether it is keeping playing professionally or, other parts of professional walks into life. I played, but I was like, I wouldn't go to the NFL. I would say, I'm not going to talk for EJ, but probably the same, right? Like, we played college ball, but NFL wasn't even the thought for us. So as somebody that's highly ranked and had those accolades, kind of like, what is the mindset going into college? Because I'm sure your approach to football is a lot different than maybe the large percentage of people. You know what I mean?
I think going into college, it's this, I think especially as you're highly recruited, I think there's a world out there that tells you how great you are. And I think sometimes you listen to it a little too much. And I think I'm glad I went through that experience of coming from something, being highly recruited, being highly sought after, and then kind of being put into a place where everything was looking up for me. And then there was a coaching change, right? And Rick Newhouse got fired after my first year, after we lost to USC 50-0. And then, and that was an interesting experience where you're sitting in a classroom, and then all of a sudden, the guy that recruited you for 1.5 years or 2 years, all of a sudden is gone, right? And it's a very different feeling. I don't think a lot of people really understand that feeling, right? Of you go from having some bit of a safety because there's someone there that got you there, and you have that relationship, and then all of a sudden that relationship is gone, and you now have to work with someone brand new that you never met from Jump Street. And I think it's one of those things where it's a humbling process, but it's also something that teaches you a lot about life of you can't control the circumstances that you're in sometimes.
So that's huge. And I mean, thank you for doubling down on that, because that's a big part that people don't see when you're attempting to follow your dreams, or, something you put so much time and passion in, to have that kind of taken from you. And I think that's something we hope to learn, or we work to learn later in life, as far as being in rooms where you're, wanted or celebrated and not tolerated.
Yep.
And not having that when you're playing ball is kind of the same, that guy didn't recruit me, right? That, now I have to reprove myself after I've done, the things to the next level. So that's going to, I guess, naturally transition us into the game. So, man, in the game, this is the segment where we really want to talk about the business part of you, man, what you've been up to and the career stuff. So we'll start with, because I want to start with, Overnght without an I, media. So make sure y'all spell it right. Had my spell checking wrong all in my show notes. But so you've called her for what it is the home of Olympic media. And you started by your shoot your shot saying polo was how it started. But after polo, why did you want to follow Olympic sports to be like the baseline or I guess the foundation of starting Overnght?
I think I started with Olympic sports because one, it was something that was mission driven, right? It was very much I was taking something that my friends had come to me about and I was building on that, right? And it's very different when you're going after something that you're mission driven. And I think it allows you to kind of walk along a path that's very different than rather if it's just solely money driven. And I think anything that you do in life, if there's a passion behind it and there's a mission behind it, I think you're going to go farther and you're going to be able to deal with adversity in a very different way. But I also think that starting Overnght and going down that path, I think it allowed to hearing those stories of those athletes that they need this product, right? They're not being seen. How are they supposed to build an NIL or and build on their likeness and who they are as athletes if no one can see them? And I think Overnght gives people an opportunity to be seen all over the world because most of the Olympic sports athletes in the United States are not from the US. They're international athletes coming here. And what makes Overnght different than any other platform is we're not geo-blocked. So essentially it's not just the US. We're seeing all over the world. We're in over 60 countries. And I think what's a little bit different between us and like an ESPN is only on the continent, the US continent. And they can't really go into Europe and those other places. I think that's what allows us to win in those cases.
Well, that's interesting. And so this concept you alluded to started, what was the genesis of growth, right? Because it started, I think you said 2021, and you ultimately launched or really came out in 2023, I believe.
Yep.
What was the work behind it, man, to kind of get it from that, inception, I believe it is, to conception?
I think
I like to laugh, so I know that your boy had a journey through this one.
I'll start off and say this. I had to teach myself how to do media rights, which is something that not a lot of people know about. There's only about a handful of companies in the world that do this. And I think it was a process of a lot of learning and a lot of being able to ask questions that are probably really simple to other people that you don't know. And I think it's learning about something called a FOIA request. I don't think Freedom of Information Act actually was kind of a basic, like the most foundational piece of my understanding of how media rights worked, because when I went out to the market, I learned that a lot of some schools have media rights deals that they hold in themselves, hold in their school level, not the conference level. And so at the conference level, you can never get those documents. But at the school level, what I noticed was if I went to a UConn who holds their sports teams are independent in some sports, they have to have a media rights deal. So I was able to get one of those. I was able to get an ESPN, a CBS, an ABC, all these different deals. And then I found what was common in all of them and put that into our deal. And then I did the same thing for others. And I think it was this concept of once I was able to do that and understand how media rights work, then I was finding deals and getting people to take a shot on us. And I think that's what water polo allowed, was because the athletes were calling for us and wanted us to be a part of that. And that's what allowed us to take that step in there to get people to open a door for us.
I mean, with you operating so much internationally, I guess, and living in the United States, what trends are you seeing that maybe the U.S. we like to think we're ahead of everything, but what are we behind on from a sports media wise?
I think the U.S. there are so many sports out there that the U.S. is just, we are not aware of in the United States. Like handball is a sport that is really popular internationally that's not here. Think of like basketball without a backboard, right? And you can't dunk on it. You just have to shoot it. There's a number of sports that are like that. That I think, like cricket. Listen, we don't play that here, but it's a massive sport. Rugby for the longest time was not popular in the United States until Alona Mar came around 2 years ago and blew the sport up in the U.S. And I think we're not aware of those things in the media because we like what we like. We like football, we like basketball, we like baseball, and those are at the core of the fiber of who we are as Americans. But there's a lot of sports out there that I think, especially now coming into a new Olympic year and we're trying out all of these different things, I think you're going to see more and more of these sports coming to the U.S. And it's going to be really interesting to see how the market starts to, do people stay around their core sports or do they grow into these other items? And I think it's really interesting to look at that.
That's big, man. So before we get back into it, your entrepreneurial spirit didn't just start, like, I'm not even gonna say in college, where you had to pivot from, the concussions and really kind of get into the business minded. You had the shovel and snow business when you was young, where you was getting money. Then you were doing parties. What was it? Heisman? Was it Heisman Entertainment, man?
Man, you guys really did some research.
What really sparked all of this, right? Like, because like entrepreneurial thing is a hard sport. If you want to talk about a challenging sport, entrepreneurialism is a very hard sport, man. What kind of fueled you like to put together deals that, I even like the deal that she did about the snow, right? You pay one fee and we got you for the year, right? Like, what kind of brought you that, I don't know, that spirit or that want to kind of go out and chase entrepreneur life?
I don't think I ever wanted to be broke. I mean, at its most basic form, like I never wanted to be broke. Like, I think when I left college and when I left grad school and I went around did interviews, it was really clear to me that I had one hiring manager tell me that I was the best candidate that ever came around. But the reason why he couldn't hire me was because he couldn't control me, or he felt that he couldn't control me. And I thought it was a really interesting kind of conversation for me because it really stuck with me. And I think that I honestly think the best employees are probably entrepreneurial, right? Because they're self-starters and they allow you to kind of get after it. And I think it's wrong when key leaders think that you have to be able to control someone, right? Like, I truly think some of the best leaders, and I saw a quote not too long ago that some of the best leaders are divas, essentially, right? I mean, some of the best employees are divas because they're going to push everyone else harder to get along and go and go and go. And I think you need entrepreneurs, you need these people, and whether they are starting their own business, but you want them to own their tasks like it's their own business. And I think that's kind of what led me kind of in this direction of understanding that entrepreneurship was my way. And I think it all kind of started, it was funny, back in the day, it all started in high school when I used to sell energy drinks out of my locker. And then I got in trouble when they came and confiscated them all. And I said, hold on, let me just get through this last shipment real quick. And then you guys can, I won't do it again. And I was able to negotiate that. I probably shouldn't say that. But yeah, no, it was a learning experience for sure.
Definitely. So that in the DMV, that Baltimore is in there, the wire, huh? You had to get the product off. Hey, we got blue tops. We got blue tops.
It was some blue energy drink thing, and I was just, hey, let me get the product gone. I gotta pay the guy. And then I just started doing it out of my car.
Awesome, man. But that's that entrepreneurial spirit, man, and that's amazing. So Olympic is where you've been building, but here locally we have a football team that's in the IFL International Indoor Football League.
Yep.
What made you take a stab at that and bringing that under the umbrella, right? Because like you're on this course and building like this amazing platform for Olympic sports. What made you take on this?
That deal kind of fell in our lap in a very different way. They were looking for a home after FanDuel kind of had gone out of business. FanDuel, for many people, FanDuel went out of business on their regional sports network side of their business, not the betting side, but the other side of their business. And they were looking for a home, and we were able to get a deal done pretty quickly. And I think it was something that worked on all sides. And I think they're great people over there, and I think they're great partners, and we've been able to really build with them. But I think what it allowed for us to do was show that we could do something, not just Olympic sports, but underrepresented sports too, because indoor football it's not widely known. People have seen it, but bringing it to more eyeballs and bringing it to different audiences, I think is what we really excel at. And I think they recognize that. And I think that's what's made it a great partnership.
And that's a great point too, man. Just when you're talking about like bringing it to more eyeballs, because that was an aha moment for me when you talked about the Olympic side, where as soon as you said it, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. A lot of our Olympic athletes are from somewhere else, right? And being able to get that out to somewhere else, right, so they can see it. You're doing the same for the football league. It's just getting more eyeballs to it that may not have a team and things like that. Go ahead, MH.
No, I was really just picking back on that point. Especially, I work on the developmental side, and it's about participation and growing the game and growing participating in sports. And I know media can be a big help in that, right? So how have you seen, just from the work that you've done, growing different sports, the participation wise, how have you seen it grow?
I think what's really interesting lately is so let's say water polo. I'm going to go through these sports just because I think it's really important to kind of walk through. I think it's when more and more people can see these sports and engage with them, I think it's important. Like water polo now has a champion being Flavor Flav, right? I think indoor football is a natural segue where the Bus just bought a team in Georgia, right? And there's all these owners that own teams that is opening eyeballs in different ways. Like the team in Vegas is owned by the Foley family, and they own the Silver Knights and the Golden Knights. And I think those things allow from different people to see different sports and engage in a different way. And I think that's what it's really about, is this kind of engaging and opening the door so new fans can see it, and then it can continue to grow in that way.
So with producing these events, how does that work, right? Because now we're hearing that, like, okay, you're doing all these Olympic sports over major institutions, a lot of different colleges, right? How are you producing all of this stuff, right? Like that, you're a busy man, but how does that work out?
So about 80% of all of our sports are done by the institution or the rights holder. About 20% is held by us. So Overnght, the way that we operate is, whether it be our rights fee or the other side of our business, we own a production company and we can do production ourselves, or we can work with the institution to make sure that a deal is advantageous for them to do the production themselves and then send the fee to Overnght. Okay.
So with that, get into a little bit, not too deep, just but for our audience to hear, because we've had people that have been on the partnership side, and a lot of people understand this maybe from a partnership side, but it wouldn't be bad to reiterate it. So Learfield, IMG, there's a few others that are on there. They go and purchase media rights from a university, and then they go sell the billboards, they sell the in-game signage, and they do all of that for that. How does that work with you, or how is that different? Like, do you have advertisement rights or selling rights when you own media rights? Like, how does that work?
So the way that Learfield works in the process, and Playflies and a lot of them, is they're working more on the local side of where the school is. Where Overnght is working is with the conference level typically, right? And then on the one-off chance, once in a while, we'll work with the agency and they'll come to us when there's a gap in essentially what those rights look like. So when I say that of gap, there's a one-off time sometimes when there is an independent sport that's held within those rights that's not a part of their conference deal. Then those are the times that we'll work with the Learfield or something like that. But most of the time, we're working with the agency or the conference directly, or the agency that represents the conference in that way, which is, there's a lot of different hands in the pot when you're talking about media rights, because everyone's got to get paid.
So EJ alluded to the spelling. How did you come up with the name, the spelling? How did all that come about?
So I can give you guys the good feel good story of it, and I'll give you kind of both of them. So one, Overnght, we typically say there's no I in team, but that's not actually what really happened. So we really tried to get Overnght, right? We really tried to get Overnght the true spelling, and then we took it to the trademark office, and the trademark office was like, nope, sorry, I can't give it to you. Too common of a word. So we dropped the I, and they were like, well, if you come back in a couple years and if you turn it into a brand, we'll consider giving you the other version of it. And then just Overnght without the I stuck, and it just worked for us. And I think that's what really stood out, and we enjoyed it. I think everyone else does now, so it works out.
Overnght without the I.
Yeah, no I in team, 100%.
No, we going with that one. All right, man. So there's a lot of changing going on in streaming, right? Like the NFL release just came. Well, at least the international games, the full schedule release will be coming out when we drop this. What are some of the differences between all of these streaming people getting in sports, right? Like what makes you guys bigger, better, or what's different in your model? Because like we've seen Netflix go, even though in boxing a little bit of a delay. We hope your stuff don't have that delay in it. But no, what's the difference between those different models? Because we're seeing a lot of sports on these streaming applications now.
So what you're looking at in the marketplace of what we're seeing in the marketplace when it comes to streaming is one, your ESPNs and your Netflix and your Apples, they're looking at top of the funnel items. So you're talking about the F1s of the world, you're talking about the NFLs of the world, you're talking about a number of those things. But what you're noticing and what not a lot of people are talking about right now is the NFL now coming back to all of those streamers and all of those platforms and now saying, we want to renegotiate our deal and we want more money, right? And now what the worst part of what that's going to look like is the trickle down effect of what you're seeing now. And what you're going to notice is a lot of us kind of downline streamers are not going to buy as much content right now, because what's essentially happening is eventually ESPN, they're going to say, okay, we need another couple $2 billion here that we have to give the NFL now. Oh, well, that money's got to come from somewhere, and it's going to cut down sports down the line. If sports stars say we were going to give them $1 million a year, they're now going to get nothing, right? And they're going to look for rights deals and look for those things. And I think a lot of streamers are now seeing that. And I know I'm saying the quiet part out loud, but I think what's happening with the NFL right now is really going to have a trickle-down effect, and it's going to hurt a lot of people down the line. And people really need to look at that, because money and billions don't just come out of come out of nowhere. And so I think that's something that's really happening in the industry right now, and people really need to pay attention to it, especially if you're a kind of that on those longer tail sports that are at the end of that. I think it could really hurt those sports. And then, with platforms like us, we want to give people what they're worth, and we want to work with them. But I think at the same time, we also don't want to pay a premium for something that on the other side, and we want good business on both sides.
No, I like that.
Let's take it to the athlete. We always hear NFL NIL, and it's already referred to football and basketball players. But how are you seeing how NIL is affecting Olympic athletes as well?
So let's take water polo, for instance, right? Water polo, it's interesting now. We're seeing a lot of sports and a lot of teams, especially in water polo for college. Some of the best players in the country are getting $50,000, $25,000 in dollars in that way, which no one's ever talking about, right? And some of the best players in the country are getting those. And I think now you're talking about a true pathway for someone in high school saying, oh, I can go get a degree, but I can also make some cash when I'm in college to do those things. That's not every player, right? But if you're an elite player, you're going to get tens of thousands of dollars to compete. We're not seeing it that much in rowing. We're not seeing it that much in other spaces. But I think you're going to get it, obviously, in the baseballs of the world. Women's volleyball and beach volleyball are absolutely crushing it right now in that regard. Women's basketball, especially in college, are now getting the dollars that they deserve as well. I think Olympic sports are going to catch up, but I think that there is a massive problem here because there's no return on investment for boosters or anyone else, right? And so at some point, the music's going to stop. There's no return on this, right? Unless I can understand if you're a Mark Cuban and you're like, I can win a national championship this year and that will make me happy. Cool, here's the $40 million because I know it's attainable goal. But if you're someone at a group of 5 or you're someone that's at a small time Power 4 school, you have no shot, right? It doesn't work that way. So why continue to invest in that way unless you have the dollars to do so? And I think that's something that we really need to pay attention to.
Nice. So one thing we definitely love on this show is to talk about ownership. We definitely believe in it, especially when athletes come on and talk about that transition to it. Maybe not a 2-part question, but I'm going to ask it in that way. Like, one, what did it mean to you, right? Like, especially since you got some feedback that they couldn't control you, right? That's maybe why entrepreneurship is good for you, right? I'm still twisted off how I feel about that.
Bro, I was like, that's wild.
That's
yeah. I'll have
although, what was it like to do that, right? Like, because you went through a raise, right? Like, people don't understand that. Like, it's great to have a concept. It's really great to have it all mapped out, but there's this one big part of it called funding. So how was that process for you and in getting investors, right? Like, I hear you have great team members, but how is it as far as your investors? Do you feel like they are part of the team as well? And is that how you choose them? Kind of walk us through just some wisdom behind that ownership and an investment part and doing a raise.
So the investment part of any startup is key, right? And so one, it's the hardest thing that anyone can ever do, I say, is raise money, because you're getting someone who probably doesn't know you to believe in your mission, to go along with the ride with you and understand they're not going to get their money back in 3, 4, 5 years, right? They're in a long-term ride with you, and you having to believe someone. It's honestly like a marriage, right? They're riding with you through the good, the bad, the ugly, all those things in between of there. And I think that is something that is key. And it's about really being sincere with someone. And think of going to a bar and trying to get someone's phone number, or think of going on a date and having someone and being able to express that to someone to like you and care about you. And I think that a lot of that has to come with raising money, is being able to be honest with someone and being able to be authentic and having them believe in you. That's on one side of it. To answer your second part of your question is, from the fundraising aspect, I think that in the people that we have around us, I was lucky enough to have a mentor who is my best friend's father, right? My best friend's father is Ron Rivera, and he has an amazing wife, Stephanie Rivera, and he was an NFL coach for a very long time, was also in the 85 Bears, the best defense to ever play the game. Nothing that Dallas Cowboys ever did. But I think that there's a
you don't even have a nickname. Y'all shut on your offensive lineman.
There is a part of this that I think is so, having people that are willing to go along on this mission with you. And I think that my mentors have been able to have those discussions with me, and he's been able to have those discussions, and she has as well. And she's been an all-star in her own career, right? She was a WNBA coach, and she was able to go through those and have that. And now she sits on the board of Cal. And I think that there is having people in your corner that understand what's important. Like, we have Sandy Barber, the former AD at Penn State, who was also at Cal. And we have a number of other investors that are big and big in what they do as well. And I think having the right group of people around you to tell you, to give their opinion, you don't have to listen to everything, right? But you have to respect where they've gone in their career and how they've gotten there. And so they can bring you a unique perspective that I don't think other people can give you.
That's big.
Yes. Shout out to Coach Rivera, man. I met him recently at the inaugural Hispanic Football Hall of Fame. He was nominated there and got on. He was one of the people over in the first class. So really cool to kind of meet him and shake his hand and put some respect on the Doomsday defense, please.
I was there as well. I'm sad we didn't get the chance to chat.
Dang, okay.
Yeah. I was there. It's funny. I went to training camps with him, and I followed him around, and that's what I did my senior thesis on when I was in grad school. I mean, my graduation thesis. But it's also I had a couple times where I like did these internships and stuff during the summer when he was at the Carolina Panthers. And what's so interesting about it is he is literally probably one of the greatest human beings I've ever been around. And I say that of sometimes people don't really talk about those things of they see these people on the field and all those things. But part of the reason why I can do the things that I can do is learning lessons from him, right? He always talked to me. Everyone always made fun of him why his arms were always crossed and his face always looked the same on the sideline, right? And I would ask him after the fact of like, hey, why would you do these things? And like he always said, if I get too high, my team will get too high. If I get too low, my team will get too low. If you noticed when you watched the Lakers a couple nights ago, when JJ Redick started losing it and all those things, all of a sudden you got LeBron losing it. You got the rest of the team losing it. Everyone's acting out for a game they probably could have won, right? And I think those things, when you're in the leadership role, you can't freak out. You can't get too high and you can't get too low. And I think those are things that I've learned from the people that have invested in Overnght. And those are lessons I probably couldn't learn from other places.
Yeah, shout out to Ron. You introduced me to him when he was in town speaking at the SBJ event, man. Really, really amazing human, man. So shout out to him. But that's a testament of who you're getting your guidance from, right? Someone who's been through those kind of things, man, just really puts a stamp behind you. And I think this is going to be a real theme of going to where you're supported, man, and where you can mature and grow. Hey, MH, man, it's time for the sudden change, man. You ready?
Yes, sir. So, Kevin, this is just random questions so our listeners can get to know you a little better, man. Early mornings or late nights?
Early mornings.
Cooking or eating out?
Eating out.
Favorite day of the week?
Monday.
Athlete version of you. High school you or college you? Which one's a better athlete?
High school, if I'm being honest.
Scale of 1 to 10, how good of a driver are you?
I'll say I'm a 10. Some of my friends may say I'm like a 7.
Okay, fair.
Depends on how fast I need to get somewhere.
Nickname, childhood nickname, something your folks used to call you.
KJ. But my teammates call me Stump.
Okay. Can I? Never mind. I'm not going to go into that right
now. No, Stump. It's just because if someone ever ran into me, it was going to hurt them more than it was going to hurt me.
I got you. Okay. Favorite childhood TV show?
I probably shouldn't say this, but The Wire.
Childhood.
Oh, you were learning some. Everybody else was Sesame Street and accountants. You learning.
Yeah, so back to that hiring manager.
Childhood high school, like childhood high school, or like childhood, like I'm in like middle school, elementary school. There's a difference there.
Yeah, I'm understanding the hiring manager now. Yes, I understand. You were a trash talker, or you kind of like the quiet competitor? Which one were you locked in at?
I was in the middle. I was the sniper essentially of jokes. Essentially, I had my joke, I said it, kept it moving, so you never got one back on me. I was that one.
You was cutting deep. You was hurting people's feelings. Doing your research. Yeah,
I do my research.
Yeah. Last one.
One in the chamber. Always one.
Last
As
one.
you can see.
Yeah, correct. Last one for you. What was your last Halloween costume?
It's been a minute. Freddy Cougar.
Like it. All right, so let's bring it on home, man. This is the winner's circle. This is where we really talk about something you're promoting. It really wasn't anything that you directly want to promote, so it's going to be really questions more about Overnght, but just some things around that. And one of the things I guess I wanted to start with, because it really hit me, I think, as we've had this conversation and just doing our prep before the conversation, is one of the things that you said in the past interview is just that you want to see kids really learn the business side of sports. And more so than when we went to school, but now, right, with the NIL and the lack of loyalty, I think we've talked about. Is it just really because of what you've seen, or you just think that they're not being prepared, right? Because this is like a big miss that the NCAA and college is not forcing to do. What really spurred that, and kind of why is that a passion for you?
What I've always thought is necessary for athletes is obviously to learn that side of the business. You have to learn the business side, and if you want to represent yourself to get the most amount of value you could possibly get out of it, right? But I think there's a couple things that are missing in this. Is one, the lack of knowledge of kids understanding the difference between profit and revenue. So, and when I say that, is only about 10 to 20 universities in D1 sports actually make a profit. So if you look at the profit loss of what Penn State had in the 2024 to 2025 school year, they made only $250,000 on roughly $250 million in revenue, right? And that's not that much money. And so when I look at this, is kids have to understand what goes into it, and one, to make a really good decision. Because what we're going to start to see here is as kids start asking for more and more and more, that revenue's got to come from somewhere, which is going to trigger to a bunch of kids losing their scholarships and a bunch of sports being shut down and these things, because football can't continue to get more and more and more, and basketball get more and more and more if there's not enough donors, if there's not enough advertisers, if there's not enough sponsorship dollars, and all the other things that come along with it. And I wish that someone would have a realistic conversation about that on one side of it. And I'm saying this as a former college athlete. I didn't get some of that money the way that they have it, but people need to have that conversation. On the other side of it, right, I think that there needs to be a more transparent way that NIL is being done. And when I say that is, I think that everyone deserves to have a signing. There should be a salary cap across the board, and then it should be like the NFL or NBA. Essentially, you can be cut, you can be traded, you can be a draft, all of those things. Because I do think that there has to be some sort of fairness across the board of universities, right? Force people to build a team the way they should build the team. You should have protected players every year that the university can protect along the way. If people want to go to school for academics, cool. You don't make that much money, though. If you want to get an education and do that. But if you want to be able to make endless amounts of money when it comes to the team paying you and those type of things, then you should be able to be cut and you should be able to be traded and all of those other things. I think there has to be some sort of us getting back to something that's fair. And I don't think it's fair right now that a team can drop 40 million and another team is forced to play with 20 million. I don't think that that's fair. That's not what sports is about. That's not what we built this on. There is you can recruit and you can get better, and that was fine back in the day, right? But that means that Boise State still had a chance to win a national championship. That's never going to happen now. JMU got blown out. I forget what the other team was in the playoff that also got blown out. That's not fair. That's not like, honestly, the two teams should have never been there.
I hear you. I want to see Duke in the national championship game. You know what I mean? I just want to see Duke and Michigan State. That's all I want to see.
But that can happen, though. But what I'm saying is that can be something that actually happens if there was some sort of parity across the board of what you had. And so it forced people to actually get back to coaching. Right now, there's no coaching. It's let me go get the best player and then
the biggest budget.
And who's got the biggest budget, right? Like there's quarterbacks out here making $2.5 million a year. There's some quarterbacks making $4 million. Of course, the $4 million one is probably going to ball out, right?
Yeah.
And then you got a quarterback that's making $500,000, but that quarterback that's making $500,000 has one good season. He's probably making $4 million the next year, but there's no way that team can keep him.
Correct.
Right? And so it should be like soccer in some form. If you're going to come steal my guy that I developed, then I should get something for that in return.
Some compensation. Yeah. No.
100%.
No, I'm totally with you. What's interesting in your group covers it really well is the stories and behind the scenes of the athletes.
Yep.
It's so much of yesteryear. We hear more about Kobe in different podcasts and interviews about what his workout regimen looked like, but we didn't see it, right? We could just hear the stories about it. Now I feel it really odd that athletes share the secrets. What's kind of your thoughts on that?
I think that you have to be able to tell storytelling now, right? Storytelling is a big key to understanding of how someone got to where they are and the journey along the way. And I think that's really important. But two, if I understand your question correctly, it's in order to humanize the athlete, you have to be able to tell the background story of where they came from, how they got there, and what those trials and tribulations were along the way. And I think if you don't do those things, I think a lot of people look at athletes as this kind of foreign thing. And then some people get really upset with the amount of money that athletes make, but not understanding what goes along in that journey and understanding that, look, LeBron James spent $1 million a year on his body to be able to do what he's doing right now at 41, right? And all these other athletes have the same access to the same amount of cash, but they're choosing to not do that, right? And so that's we're going to see eventually what the cost was to being great. We now see what the cost was for Kobe to be great, right? We see what the cost was for Michael to be great, but eventually we will see what the cost was to LeBron being great. And I think there'll be a lot more respect for what he has done because of that.
I love that. All right, man, we slowly getting out of here. Give us two things. Why should we get on if we're like what as a layperson, right? I know I don't have a kid in a sports, but why should I jump on your channel? Give us that sales pitch. And then the second part is, what's next? What should we look out for?
One, thank you guys for having me on here. Two, to answer your questions, I think what's next is obviously Overnight's going to continue to grow in the Olympic sports space, but we want to find a way to build this ecosystem of things to make it as easy as it is for people when they come to Overnght to be able to get your stats, be able to get your live video, to be able to get your merchandise, to get all of these things in one place. And I think that's what's the key of this, is building something that's a true ecosystem of products so that people don't have to go to a million different places to find what they're looking for. And simplifying people's lives, I think is key here. And then what was the first question that you said?
Why should we watch? Like, we got our followers and listeners. Like, tell us all why we should download it and get the app. Talk to us.
I think you should download Overnght because, to be honest, these are the best athletes in the world. Water polo is a sport that is like gladiators in water, treading water while someone is trying to drown you repeatedly up and down a pool and you trying to score a goal. That is unheard of, and more people should watch it. It's the most interesting thing I've ever seen. And I would arguably say it's the hardest sport in the world to tread water for the entire time. You can't touch the bottom, to swim, and also have to compete, and you can only hold the ball with one hand. So that is an incredible sport, and these athletes are amazing athletes. And I think that more and more people need to see that, and I hope that they can and show up and support. This is how these Olympic sports survive, is through platforms like Overnght.
That's awesome, and sharing that message. So do you think platform like yours that's been really helping and driving the growth of these sports? Could you say breakdancing for the Olympics?
I'm not really a breakdancing kind of guy, and that's not to say there's not an audience for that. But I think there's many other sports that need our help, and hopefully one day we can get to breakdancing.
There it is. No. And lastly, the Olympics is coming, right? So 2028 Olympics, right? How is that, helping, or what are you guys doing around that, right? Because that should really bring a buzz for all these Olympic athletes that are doing the qualifying and doing all these steps, getting ready for LA 28, man. So how have Overnght been preparing, or is it not really like a big thing for you all?
It's a huge thing for us. I think as we prepare for the LA 2028, like anyone else, I think it's finding activations that make sense for our athletes, but also finding ways to bring more attention to these athletes in the 4 years between the Olympics. And I think that's what we're really focused on, is how do we continue to bring attention to these athletes and building the stars of tomorrow so that people have a Lone Amar of water polo, or, you know, something else for rowing and all of these other sports that we carry on our platform. And I think it's important to bring as many eyeballs as we possibly can to the platform so that we can continue to grow, but also these athletes can continue to build brands for themselves for success well beyond when they finish their athletic career.
Love it. Love it. All right. So now you get to put your coaching hat on. This is where we like to call the assist, where you can drop a coaching gem or a jewel or a nugget for people. What we usually ask is maybe a quote that you live by or words of inspiration, or maybe something you would have told your younger self.
Keep the main thing the main thing. I had a coach that always said that, Angus McClure. Keep the main thing the main thing. So when we all go ahead and look right and left and all those different things is when we lose sight of what's really important. And so keep the main thing the main thing. Absolutely. MH, hit us with those final thoughts.
Yeah, I just hope the Commanders are looking north at the rest of the division this coming up this year. But no, man, really appreciate you, brother. Like it's been I'm just Nah, man, it's been real cool, man, talking to you, man, and I hope to do it more with you, man. Is, you know, congratulations to everything that you've built. It's truly a amazing platform and telling stories of these amazing athletes. I agree with you. Water polo is the most craziest thing because they're coming out of the water too. It's like it's really unbelievable. So those stories should be told more, man. So thanks for jumping on with us, man, and really appreciate everything that you're doing.
Absolutely. And last thing I'll do, if you could, man, we're going to put this in the show notes, but shout out or just say for our audio listeners how they can follow you or subscribe or get more information on Overnght. So give us that information.
Absolutely. So you can find us on overnght.com, no I in Overnght, or on the App Store at Overnght, no I as well.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you, man, for jumping on. This has been an amazing conversation. I love the beef, the little rivalry right there going on. That always makes it fun, man. And that's what it is about sports, right? It's bringing us together. It's that competitive drive, and it's being able to hear the stories of the people that make it. So thank you so much, man, Kevin, for actually sharing the stories of some of these athletes that we don't get often a big chance to kind of see. So thank you so much for that, man.
Thank you for having me on. And, you know, it's always great to talk to Dallas fans. It really puts things into perspective of what it's like where, you know, they haven't been relevant for so long. And then we come along out of nowhere and go to the NFC Championship. And then, you know, they didn't make the playoffs. And it's just kind of crazy. But thank you guys so much for having me on. And I think it's really been an incredible experience. And I hope you guys have me on again.
Absolutely. Well, hey, we want a final thought. Thanks for interview, Kevin, man. Always a good time. Maybe we'll drop the little inside story of how we became twins. But, man, I hope you really enjoyed this and look in the show notes to follow more. We'll definitely kind of figure out how to have you on just to kind of get the update because what you're doing is amazing and needed. If you enjoyed the show today, please share it with a friend, share it with someone that's in Olympic sports, share it with that college maybe that needs to pick up and sign a new media rights deal with Overnght. I'll take that 15-20% when we get that deal done. But always, like we say, man, please subscribe to our YouTube channel because visual representation matters. If you see it, you can be it. And just know that we're on all platforms. And like we said before we get out of here, please stay safe, practice gratitude, and know that we're rooting for you.
Screaming, all us blacks got it, sports and entertainment until we even.
Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yeah. Yeah. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yo. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Spent about 2 racks on handmade new rags. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. That's everybody.